Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here with us today. My name is Keith Marzullo, and I'm delighted that I'm the Dean of the University of Maryland's College of Information Studies. It's an honor. I'm delighted to welcome you all to our Q&A roundtable discussion, which we call Engage Part 2, Considering Technology and Access for Older Adults. I'm pleased to introduce the moderator of this discussion, who also facilitated the first part of the event back in September. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jen Golbeck.
So thank you everyone for joining us for Engaged Part 2. I'm Jen Golbeck. I'm going to be hosting today. The format that we're going to have, which you may have heard if you dropped in early, is that we're essentially doing this sort of like a radio or TV call-in show. We're going to spend the first half hour today giving some questions from me to our panelists, who I'll introduce in just a second. And we reserved the second half of today for all of you to ask questions. So as Dr. Marzullo said, you can put those in the chat, you can put them in the Q&A, but we'll also be able to call on you so you can ask your question, over Zoom with video, and I'll be handling that. So again, make sure you use the raise hand feature if you have a question like that. I will advise you, as well as the panelists, that we have a lot to cover today. Everybody's interested in a lot of different things. So keep your questions short when you ask them, and to the panelists, they will also have to keep their answers short. If we ever are not getting in depth enough about something that you're interested in, just let us know in the chat feature. And typically when we do these, we give a lot of feedback in the chat, and that archive will be available for everyone as well. So let me start by introducing our panelists. We have Millie Godfrey. She's the Information Systems Training Manager for the Pratt Center for Technology Training, the PCTT, at the Enoch Pratt Free Library in Baltimore. Millie, it's good to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
We have Dr. Galina Reitz, the Faculty Program Director for the iSchool's Bachelor of Science in Information Science at the universities at Shady Grove. Galina, it's good to have you. And thanks. And Dr. Greg Vanderheiden, a professor at UMD's iSchool and director of the Trace Research and Development Center. Greg, thanks for joining.
Hi, everybody.
Let's jump into the questions for our panelists, starting with Galina and Millie. So social isolation is a serious issue for older adults in general. And then, of course, especially in the time of COVID, they may be eating out less, have less reliable access to transportation. And then if they're living in a facility designed for older adults, they may not even be allowed to visit with family in person right now. So Millie, I want to start with you. Do you have suggestions for technology that families can look into that will help them stay virtually connected with older adults?
Yes, I've got a couple of suggestions. I'm going to share my screen for a minute.
Great.
Stay virtually connected with older adults. And one of the things that I thought about is something that we teach at our training centers would be Zoom, WhatsApp, and of course, Facebook. So Zoom is a bare bones, user-friendly video conferencing software. Users can record sessions. And also we have Skype and WhatsApp. Now with Skype and WhatsApp, they are a little different, but they're still user-friendly. Skype is owned by Microsoft, WhatsApp is owned by Facebook. Both tools are free to use, and users may register for both systems. So you have calls and messages are free between users, but remember, Skype to Skype or WhatsApp to WhatsApp, because Skype calls to landline phones and to non-Skype users are not free. And lastly, our famous Facebook. So Facebook Mobile is free, and you can send messages or log on to get updates, a photo of friends and families. For seniors leading busy lives on their own, downloading the Facebook app on your iPad or smartphone is a good idea. So those are the ones that I came up with to help those who need to be connected or stay connected.
Great, thanks. Those are all really excellent suggestions. Galina, what are some other technologies that can be used to reduce social isolation?
Sure. So I wanted to give low cost to high cost, and I know that that's something important that we need to consider. Not everyone can afford a LEQ robot that's $1,400, but I thought it'd be interesting to kind of really think about the future and what the possibilities hold. So I included that, and it's interesting because LEQ has been on the market for quite some time, and they've done some interesting improvements. So if you are passionate about technology, I encourage you to kind of check out some of these a little bit more abstract technologies, much like Replica. If you see on the bottom right, it's actually a personal companion. And for some of you, yes, it might be a little bit creepy to talk to a robot. The interesting thing about Replika is that actually it emulates you. And so you're kind of having a conversation with yourself and sort of talking through some issues. And I think any conversation can be powerful. So I thought that's something interesting. I put IN2L. I think I mentioned it at our last event. I love the company. I've worked with them. They've really come from a great place, and they support not only older persons, but those who have dementia. And they came out with a tablet that's really user-friendly. And you can connect obviously to family members and friends, much like Portal. I've been working with a couple who are now dear friends of mine, and one of the partners has dementia, and they've been really passionate about Portal. Much like Millie mentioned, Facebook mobile is free, and you can actually call friends through Facebook Portal. And it's connected to your TV. It's very cool. I've been using it with my older friends, and you move around, they move around, you can see them, you can sort of see the whole space. So it's very engaging. And I wanted to include a couple of low cost. I actually have been involved with the Howard County Office of Aging. I've been doing some cyber clinics for them, but they have more than 200 offerings. And so I would really encourage those who are looking for engagement to reach out to their local senior centers. There's lots of free options to connect. And then finally, Quarantine Chat. It's a real phone connection. So you actually talk to a real person through the phone. It's free. And even if you don't, become best friends, it's still a great way to kind of hear somebody else's voice and have a chat. So
that's great. Thank you, Galina. And I have to say, I've gotten tired of having to be on video all the time. And so I really love just like old school phone calls at this point where I don't have to look nice at the camera. I spend so much time thinking about what my face looks like. So Greg, let's talk about what to buy. Galina kind of hinted at a few things in her last answer, but if someone's looking to get, say, holiday present, a new computer or a tablet for their older family members this year, or if they're older themselves and want to buy themselves some technology, what are your top 3 suggestions for kind of easy to use purchases?
Well, one of the things is, as was mentioned earlier, we mentioned Skype. And if people are using it for like $7 a month, you get unlimited calling anywhere. So if people want to be using that kind of a thing, and you can call phones and stuff like that if you want as well. If you are in the Apple ecosystem, like you have an iPhone or an iPad or something like this, there is Messenger, and you can do free along with FaceTime. So you can do free audio and calls like we have right now, unlimited to anybody for no cost, as long as you are connected to a Wi-Fi. So you can make these very high fidelity calls. Also, Zoom we think about as being something you have to pay for, but if anybody that you're talking to has an account, then everybody can get together on a Zoom call. So if anybody in your family has a Zoom account, then they can set up a meeting and you can get all your family members together. But even if you don't, for 40 minutes, you can use Zoom free. It only costs money if you want to talk for more than 40 minutes. So some people, that's good. They say, oh, good, we'll use that because after 40 minutes, that's all the FaceTime I want to have. So these are things that you can use. Also, a lot of people buy iPads and things like this, and then they buy the new version, and they buy a new version. Get an old version. These things last forever. And if you have them and you have them sitting on your counter and you're plugged in, you don't have to worry about the batteries or anything like this. You can get one that's 3, 4, 5 years old, and it'll work just fine. And it makes a rather easy to use. Now, if you're older, I would say, or if computers confuse you at all, get one of the older versions, not the newer versions, the ones that have a button on the bottom. Because on the old ones, one of the things is that if you go to use it, you start off with it and it's got all these nice little icons. But as soon as you touch an icon and open up an app, it fills up your screen. And now it's like, how do I get back to my apps? And it's really easy. You just push the button on the bottom and you can always get back to home. And so if you get someplace, you're confused, you can always push this and get home. The new computers, they got rid of this. And instead, you have to know that you have to sort of swipe up from the bottom of the screen. And if you don't swipe up right, or you don't go off the edge and you go from the middle, it doesn't work. So if you have somebody, or you're getting something for someone who's older, actually getting an older one that has the home button can be really important. And if you just check around in your family, check around in your neighborhood, you'll find out that there's probably somebody who has one that they're not using anymore. And so you can get them low cost. On the flip side, very similar to this are the Android tablets. And you can buy a brand new 8-inch tablet for like 50, 60 bucks. So they're very inexpensive for the brand new ones. And then the little bit larger ones are like 89 or whatever. Watch around the Christmas sales, you can get very low cost there. So these are all ways of staying connected. There's also something you can do, which is to create a shortcut. So, and we're actually making some tools to do it on even laptops. So if you have an old laptop around, you can make a laptop that would just have a strip of buttons down the side, and this one gets you the news, and this one gets you your email, and this one will log in to your Sunday call, etc. So that we can do very simple kinds of things. So these are the technologies today that you might be able to use. The last one is called Morphic, M-O-R-P-H-I-C. And we're just moving that out of beta and stuff later this year, but that'll be something that can change even an old laptop you have laying around into something that's easier to use for people.
And Greg, I'm going to have some questions specifically about that for you as we go forward. And Millie, I don't mean to put you on the spot because this isn't something that I had prepared you for, but when we were chatting before we started, I was talking to you about these sorts of technologies, and you raised a couple interesting kind of hardware points about what older adults might need with their tech that are things that I hadn't thought of. So if you wouldn't mind, could you share just a couple thoughts that you had shared with me before on that?
Sure. One of the things that we may want to think about when we're purchasing these devices for older adults is to make sure that we get a larger keyboard. The keys look fine to me. However, they're just too small for some of our older adults. So actually investing in a larger keyboard for either the laptop or the desktop would be great. I looked into some of the other computers, and they are very expensive if you get one that has the tech support and it has everything that you need. So I would stay away from that for a little bit and just go on getting something that they can utilize themselves, that has a larger screen, a larger keyboard, and of course, accessibility is there on our Windows and Mac computers.
Great, thank you very much. So Galina, let's talk about patients who have dementia issues. What are some specific technologies, whether it's apps or other tech, that might be easy to use for them or maybe helpful for that community?
Sure. So I've chosen a couple of different ones, and they really sort of cover varying ranges of needs. And so I was thinking, fulfilling someone's emotional needs, also if they're hard of seeing or hearing. So working with older adults who have cognitive impairment for the last close to 10 years has really kind of made me think about what are some of the most appropriate technologies. And I would say some of the things that I have found, for example, is it's called the dementia clock. And it's not something that we think about a lot, but a lot of the time when we have a loved one who is waking up and they're confused, just simply having something that indicates what's the day and is it morning, is it evening, and confusing those can actually be quite easy for them. So those are some of the things that are very low cost and easy to get on Amazon, much like the universal remote control. I was just talking to an elder couple, and they were saying how the voice is not working anymore on the remote control, and it's so frustrating because they have to click the numbers, and now we're used to using voice a lot and kind of saying, turn the channel to 54. So I think a universal remote with big buttons might be useful. Also, I'm hoping that there will be some on the market that are universally with voice. And then a couple of other aspects. I was thinking about the connection, social connection as well. And obviously photo albums are really important, or looking through pictures to kind of resurrect old memories. But what I have found to be really useful is talking photo albums. So someone could record a 10 to 12-second message for each picture, send it to their loved one. And it's a really great way to kind of remind the person, this is your daughter or this is your mom, because a lot of the time they'll just kind of assume that it's somebody. And it's a nice way to hear somebody's voice. Just like adaptive clothing, this is something that we see all the time, where really depending on which stage in dementia the person is, it's hard for them to put the buttons on and put, pajamas on. So adaptive clothing has really come a long way. It's really amazing and innovative. So I've put a couple of the brands that I've looked at that have some really unique clothing items. So I'd encourage you to kind of check it out if you do have somebody who is sort of early stage dementia, but still living at home and wants to be independent. This would be great for them. Much like TrueLink that I have on the slide, this is a credit card. I remember talking to a participant, and they were sharing with me how their partner had a credit card or had cash or their wallet and went out, and then they came back and forgot where they were going, lost their wallet. And so that's something simple that a person could still feel autonomous and empowered and have their own credit card, but obviously it is monitored by a loved one or a family member. So it's a nice way to kind of encourage them to continue to live their life independently. And I know that there's some, people are sort of apprehensive about robotic pets. They're actually becoming more and more popular. And now that they're not so high cost, like Paro was the first robotic seal that was very expensive in Japan. Now we have Joy for All, which is relatively low cost. And I was 100% a skeptic, but just seeing how older adults with dementia interact with the pet is really amazing. So I would definitely encourage you to check it out if it's somebody who loves animals and obviously can't take care of a real animal. And last but not least, I would say if you are worried about sort of wondering, somebody who gets out of bed at night, I would say bed sensors, bed alert systems are a great way to kind of ensure that somebody is safe at home in their bed, much like the Smart Soul. This is something where it really, when somebody goes outside and quote unquote wanders, even if they have, let's say, a watch that they're supposed to be wearing, so you have GPS access to their location, they may forget to put on the watch, but they will probably put on their shoes. So Smart Soul is a really great company to alleviate some of those stressors.
Great, thank you. So Millie, what about health-related technologies or apps? What are like your top 3 suggestions?
Oh, okay. So I was looking, doing some research, and there are just hundreds out there. So I did choose 3. One of them was WebMD. It's a mobile app. It gives you 24/7 access to health information. It provides support tools, and this information can help you make the right decisions about your health. You can also get it personalized by creating and saving your own list of drugs. And in that way, it can interact with some of the things that you need to know about what you're taking. There's another one called Urgent Care. Again, this medical app, and I've not heard of this one, but it combines dual benefits for instant access to emergency health care. You can reach for a certified doctor, and I'm saying to myself, wow, I didn't realize anything can do this. So later doctors can diagnose and analyze and advise treatment on the basis of health conditions, and this is all through perhaps a phone call. So you have to just download Urgent Care. All of these apps are free, and then you can just start using them. So I find that one was really interesting. I think I'm going to do that one tomorrow. And then the last one I looked at is something called Pain Care. Again, it's a free app, and it said that it was an award-winning healthcare app, and it's designed so that you will be able to put in your information. It helps elderly patients and families to track chronic pain. It monitors symptoms and medications, and also the side effects of medications. So all of these apps, and as I said, there was hundreds of them. It was so hard to choose which ones to talk about today, because they all, when I read them, I looked at them and said, wow, I didn't even realize that these apps did so much.
That's great. So we're coming low on time for the questions that I have for all of you before we go to the audience. So real quick answers to the last few questions that I have. Greg, you had actually started in your last answer talking about some of the technology that's there for, say, people who are helping their older family members set up their technology. So I was wondering if you could spend just like a minute giving us some advice on either tools that are out there to help those people or things that seniors may want to use to kind of simplify their life. I know that's a big question, but give me the highlights.
Okay. One of the things is and let me share a screen here to show you one of them. We keep talking about tablets and fancy kinds of things, but don't forget the phone, the good old fashioned phone. And there's a Jitterbug that you may have heard of before, and now they have something called Lively, which it looks like the old Jitterbug became Lively, and the new Jitterbug is now looks like a cell phone, a smartphone. And be aware that sometimes people say these things are really good for seniors, but for seniors who are getting into the dementia, it may be a lot more difficult. So think of a simple flip phone. It rings, they pick it up. We also have, we talked about Morphic, and I'll just show you here. It's something that for a computer, people who are used to it, they want to use a computer, they can't figure out to anymore. They click on here and they get mail. If they click on the news, they get the news. If they click on here, they can get weather. Again, Amazon, they click here, they can go to the photos and you can see photos of the family or whatever that you can have set up there. A call to the family. So there's one click and it drops them right into the Skype to the phone call they're trying to make. Sorry, it came up on my other screen. But when they just click on call the family, it just comes up right away. And all they need to do is just click start the meeting. So it makes things larger on screen, CNN, et cetera. So you can make it so it's just like one click for each item and they don't have to try and remember. But again, try to think of something that is what they used to have before. Even if it goes so far as that the only phone they've ever used is the kind that you pick up, then give them a phone that you pick up, because they always know how to use stuff they've used before. New stuff, not so much.
Greg, this is lovely. This is the first demo I've seen of Morphic, and I love it. Is that something that people can just get access to now? Does it work on all different operating systems and such?
It runs on the Mac and on Windows, and we are just going into beta. People who are interested in this can contact me, and we can put you in the beta program, and you can try it for the next 6 months for free and see what you think about it.
That's great. So we'll make sure we get information to everyone who's here today if they're interested in trying that. Okay, so we've got time for one more question for each of you. So Galina, one story that I had told you about when we were kind of prepping for this was about my grandma. So she was 93. She just passed away a couple months ago, and had a really rough last few years with some dementia and then a lot of physical problems. She insisted on living at home, well past the point where she could kind of reliably live at home, and she was falling a lot, which was a real worry for us. And she was also wonderful and stubborn and would not wear like a medical alert button, and she just refused. And so the advice that I kind of ended up giving to my family was that we would just put little Alexas around the house, so if she did fall, she could use a kind of voice technology with that to call my mom or call somebody to help her because she wouldn't wear the button. You had kind of talked about voice technologies really briefly with the remotes in your last answer. So could you give us a sort of overview of voice assistants or this kind of technology and how it can be helpful?
Sure. So what I would recommend is to choose a platform and stick with it. I think we have heard a lot about Alexa, but also Google Home, which is on the market. They're both really great digital voice assistants. I think because there's so many peripherals that I think are really wonderful and great, that you can build an ecosystem in your home that's controlled by voice, you should really kind of choose, am I going with Alexa and Amazon, or am I sticking with Google? And obviously they each have their pros and cons. I think Alexa has been on the market much longer. Google has YouTube and lots lots of sort of different applications. So it really depends on what your needs are. I think if you're looking for, let's say, a smart thermostat, cameras to put on the doorbell or inside the home or outside of the home, both of these platforms will give you those abilities. I think it just kind of depends maybe which company you like better. And also just kind of watching a couple of YouTube videos and kind of seeing, which assistant will fit better with your life. And so on the screen, I've kind of shown you a couple of different options. As I mentioned, Alexa has a lot of great peripherals. They've been on the market for a long time. And actually, they just came out with Alexa Care Hub. I'm hoping that it's because of me, because I've been talking about this for the past 6 years. Probably not, but it's great that obviously they're paying attention. They understand there's lots of older adults using their devices. And so now it's a great way, much easier way. You could do it before, but an easier way to sort of drop in on your loved ones, see how they're doing, get some feedback in terms of their activity during the day. So if you are interested in Alexa and you are a caregiver and would like to sort of have that option, the new option is a good one to explore. So I pasted a couple of quotes. This is from someone who is a caregiver who is taking care of someone with dementia. And a lot of the messages that we get is about privacy. And for him, I just wanted to share that for him, really, the trade-off was that he could take care of his wife, and if he's at the grocery store, for example, he could be on his cell phone, open up the Alexa app and drop in on his wife who's sitting in her chair, and he could see her and make sure that she's doing well. So I think it really depends on what your needs are. What are you looking for? Both of these will give you sort of the same capability. And I just have a 20-second video because it's so endearing. And this is one of my favorite people. And this is when I showed her how to upload her grocery list to Alexa, and she could go to the grocery store and just pull it up on her Alexa app. And it just made her so happy. And of course, technology technology has failed me again.
Well, Galina, if we have time at the end, I will reserve you 20 seconds to play the video because you've promised a lot. Okay, so Millie, last question to you from me, and then we'll go to questions from the audience. What about wearables like Fitbits or an Apple Watch? Like, what kind of things did those have built in that could be helpful to this population?
Okay, so the Apple Watch, one of the great features that they have, and also that Fitbit has, well, I'll start with the Apple Watch. It detects a fall. So what happens is if you fall, there'll be a tap on your wrist from the Apple Watch, and it'll ask you a question. Are you in need of assistance? You can say, it says something like, yes, did you fall? And then you can say, well, no, I didn't fall, I'm okay. Or you can say, yes, I did fall, I'm okay. You say nothing. As long as you're not moving, they are going to call the SOS emergency number so that someone could assist you. So that's one of the great features about Apple. It also, in your Apple, in your app for your watch, you can turn on a heart rate notification. And all you have to do is just to put in your information. For Fitbit, it also has a fall detection procedure. And it's Google Maps. It's a link. It's sent to your caregiver and all emergency contacts immediately to let them know that you have fallen and where you're located. So these are great features. Fitbit offers heart monitoring tools through a new partnership with FibriCheck, FibriCheck, and that's free as well. So Fitbit users can now check and share their heart and blood flow data with their doctor thanks to a new partnership with this heart monitoring app. So these are great features for the watch, for the Apple Watch, and also for Fitbit as well.
Great, thank you. So that's the end of my prepared questions that hopefully gave us a kind of high level overview, but we've reserved the end of this to take questions from the audience. So if you have questions about specific things that were mentioned that you want more detail on, or if you have questions on things I haven't talked about, that's great. Like, that's what our time is for. You can put those in the Q&A and I'll read some of those. You also can actually ask them. So just raise your hand. And if you want to talk and ask your question out loud, we'll let you do that. So let's start with one. Jeff, you have had your hand up for a long time. So Jeff Menick, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure. This is for Greg. when you talked about the Apple family of communication, it sounded to me as though you talked about using Facebook Messenger. I am an Apple user, and if I want to speak to another Apple user, I use FaceTime. Both of my kids have Messenger, and because I can't FaceTime them through the Apple system because they don't have FaceTime, I have to use the Messenger app in whatchamacallit,
In Facebook.
Facebook, whereas it's FaceTime Apple to Apple. And Millie, I was gonna.
That's such a sweet family. So
Sorry, never mind. Go ahead.
And Millie, to follow up with you, I had a question about the Apple Watch because my kids insisted that I get one for exactly the feature you talked about, the fall notification, but the watch doesn't stay charged for very long, relatively speaking. Do you know if that feature works if the watch has lost its charge?
Thanks, Jeff, for both of those questions. So Millie, I'll let you answer that last one while it's fresh, and then Greg, I'll come back to you about the messenger option. So Millie, you want to go ahead?
My understanding, Jeff, is that if that watch has no battery life in it, then that feature may not work, but that's something I can research a little bit more on that. My watch stays charged all day, and I'll put it on first thing in the morning, and I may not take it off until like 1 a.m.
I do the same thing. I have mine on the charger when I'm sleeping and on the rest of the day. So Greg, you had, so Jeff's question had asked about FaceTime versus Facebook Messenger. Do you just want to clarify that for others who may, not understand?
Yes, it was my fault. I said messenger and I meant iMessage. So there's iMessage, which is on every device. And from iMessage, you can launch FaceTime, which you can also use on phones, but you don't have to have a phone to use FaceTime. You can FaceTime between any two devices. You're right. These are what they call walled gardens, in that they want you to all work within use their products. So you end up having to get either a product that they can use or a product that you can use. And this is where Skype and some of these cross-platform chat and communication systems can be really very nice. And Skype is the most used one that I know of, that lets you chat and talk and do face communication all at once for free.
That's great. Thanks. So let me take one from the Q&A. David Crowley says, my residents are afraid of even getting near a computer. How to help them pass their fears. I got to say, my grandma was a computer user, but whenever anything went wrong, she would just unplug it from the wall. Any weird message, just unplug it. So I guess that's one level braver. Millie, this sounds like something that you may encounter with the work that you do. Any suggestions for David?
Oh, absolutely. We encounter it all the time. And the only thing that I can say is what we try to do is to take it slow. We teach a lot of senior classes, and our focus at the Pratt Library is that we want to reach those individuals who have little to no computer experience. And so what we do is just hold their hand, make sure that we walk them through each step. We want to try to give them very, very basic understanding, not too techy, until they get to the point where they say, hey, I've got it, and they can move on.
That's great. Let's take a question from Molly Mitchell. Molly, I have unmuted you. You want to go ahead and ask your question? All right, Molly, if you can't unmute, I will come back to you. One more try.
Is that better?
That's great.
Okay. I was wondering if years ago, I did a program learning how to use a computer when I was working for a specific company. This was early on. And I would love to find a program that I could do on my desktop at home that would teach me how to do things that I could learn at my own pace. I mean, this particular program I use, it would tell you to do something, you would do it, and you would know whether you did it correctly or not. And I'm talking about being able to access the computer and learn how to do things on the desktop or whatever more easily. And I've never known of a program that I could use in my home that way. Do any of you know of something like that?
Greg, that sounds like something that might be up your alley.
Sorry, I was answering a chat question at the same time. So what was your?
Oh
So
dear.
no, I'll try to sum that up for you,
Paraphrase
Molly.
it.
Basically, is there something that Molly could use on her desktop computer that would just teach her to do new stuff on the computer, that would kind of walk her through, tell her if she did it right? I think the equivalent of what we would call sort of an onboarding.
Yeah, actually the best thing that I can think of offhand is go to YouTube, and at the top, if you want to learn about something, just new things to do on or something like this, there people have made videos about absolutely everything that'll show you how to walk through and do things. So that would be one thing. I don't know of any what I would call a guided interactive system where it says try this and you do it, and then try this and you do it, and then try this and then you do it. Oh no, you did it wrong, because it's too hard for one software to figure out how to, what the computer's doing. There's so many things that can go off in funny directions on a computer, and hard to come back. So I don't know, but exploring new things on my computer, try typing that into YouTube and see what you find. I'm sure that there will be people who will do that and put the word senior or older in the sentence and see what you come up with. That's what I would try.
And Greg, if I can just add on to that, Molly, one thing that you might look at, it depends on the application, but I am Adobe has a lot of things exactly like what you're talking about for their particular software. So I do, I have a PhD in computer science, but I still do a ton of tutorials like this. And for example, in Lightroom, which is a kind of photo editing app, they've got these tutorials, and it literally is like drag this slider here, and it doesn't let you do the next step till you drag the slider there. So it really is exactly the kind of thing you're talking about. And I think they have that built into a lot of their different applications. So it's not really the whole computer level, but I think if you look inside a lot of programs that you might want to use, they'll have those kind of tutorials that will give you that. If you have more specific questions about that, I think you can message any of us, and we'll be able to help you dig some things out.
You could also try doing a search for interactive tutorial, and then whatever you're interested in, email, whatever else. And somebody's probably done something like this. It'll help you find such things. Interactive tutorial is the language you'd kind of look for to find something like what Jen was talking about.
Okay, so I'm looking back at the Q&A. We've had a bunch of questions about whether or not we're going to share the slides or links, and all of that is going to be shared with everyone when we're done. So you'll be able to see Millie and Galina's slides. We'll have links to all the stuff that we've talked about. So if you missed any of it when we're talking about it, we'll get it to you. But one question that came up from a few different people, and I'm going to read an anonymous question here, says, many of these ideas presume a level of economic, dare I say, middle-class privilege. What about those on a very limited budget who can't afford even a $50 tablet? Are there assistance programs available? So we have talked about a lot of tech and apps that are free, but what about this just kind of getting access to a device? Anyone want to take that in particular?
I like what Greg said a little while ago. Believe it or not, there are family members who have tablets that they just don't use anymore. So I have an iPad, but I have an Android, and I haven't used that in a while. So that can go to a family member who has a need. And Greg said, look around in the neighborhood, find out who might have an extra laptop that they're not even using. You'd be surprised at what kind of resources that you can get, because they're just sitting there and we're just waiting for somebody to take it off our hands.
If your family's large enough, there's almost always somebody who will say, oh, yes, I have something, and they'll use that as an excuse to go buy a new one for themselves.
Yes.
And I'll, Galina, I see you unmuted. I'll let you chime in for a second, but I'll just add that I just did a search on eBay, and you can get a lot of older iPads. And Greg, I love your advice. I miss my home button on my Apple devices. Getting those older devices, like Greg mentioned, for less than $10. And if you can find someplace local, a lot of times you can pick those up for quite cheap. Galina, did you want to chime in with an answer on this?
I just wanted to mention that I remember seeing an ARP initiative, and this was in the Maryland, Baltimore area. So if I find something, and they were giving out some of their grant pads when they were testing them out, So that may be something that could potentially, get you a tablet. But I completely understand. It's quite hard to find low cost technology.
Yeah, ask those friends and family members for their old stuff. I got a drawer full of it that I would happily give to people. Okay, let's go back to voice questions. Edgar Rivas, I'm going to let you go ahead and talk. You have a question?
Yeah, hi. I'm with the Villages, the Village to Village network across the country, and we all know social isolation is a big deal, and yet we have a lot of elders who have a hard time just with the basics of computers. So Morphic sounds fascinating to me, even though you said it only works on Windows and iOS. So I presume eventually you're going to go to the Android systems and to other operating systems. But at this point, at least because I'm most familiar with the iOS systems, will that work on pads, on iPads as well as iPhones, or is it strictly a computer thing?
Greg, that one's for you.
Oh.
Were you typing again, Greg?
I was answering another of the Q&A and typing. So you want to give me the quick version again? Sorry about that. I'm trying to answer the typed questions while we were doing the audio. So go ahead.
Does Morphic work on iPads and iPhones?
No, Morphic only works on Windows and Mac OS, because the other things have what's called a security sandbox. And one app is not allowed to interact with any other app. So you can't make an app that will make other apps easier to use because they wall them all off from each other. So it could be done, but it would have to be done by either Apple or Google on those platforms.
Thank you. Thanks, Edgar. And we'll make sure to link some information about that, Greg, so everybody can really get more in depth after.
The closest to that, though, is look at the Jitterbug, which is it's meant to be an app that's all in one. And somebody else talked about like Grandad, and there are other apps where it's all in one app. And in that one app, you can make a call and you can do this and get a calendar. And it's sort of like its own little walled garden. Those will work on mobile devices, and so you should look into those.
Great. We have a few questions in the Q&A about security. So if we're talking about getting older devices, sometimes those don't support the same kind of security technology. The fact that older adults are sometimes more susceptible to some of this kind of scammy stuff, whether it's phishing or viruses or malware, stuff that you need a little bit more sophistication to be able to catch. And frankly, some of us do the bad stuff anyway. And so I'd like to hear from all of you, and maybe Millie, we'll start with you and then do Galina and Greg, just your thoughts on, steps that can be taken to make sure that they're not putting themselves at a security risk for getting hacked or revealing information or downloading something bad.
So we have a class that's called Internet Security. And in that class, we try to just teach the basics of not clicking on a link if you're not familiar with it. We give the example of if someone knocks on your door, you don't always open it. Even if you know it's who's there, you still don't open it all the time, but you don't always open it. And just because you're clicking on a link, you see a link, don't always open it if you don't know who that particular the web address is. So just be on the side of safety, and just don't open links or don't address anything. If it asks you a question, would you like to do whatever? And just answer no or cancel, because you don't know who this question is coming from. That's the safest thing to do. Keep the door locked.
Galina, what are your thoughts?
Well, actually, I'll save my thoughts because I just did it's about 20-30 minute webinar where I talked about the 5 tips for being safe and secure online for older adults. So I will paste that in the link. So
great.
Feel free to watch it.
Perfect. Thank you. Greg, any other thoughts that you want to add on?
Yeah. One of the things is to try and find an email program where you can limit it to the only email that comes in are ones in the address book. If you do that, then yes, random people try to write to the person, they won't get through. Maybe you can have that forward to another person or something, but that way the only people that they can get email from are people that are in their address book. This gets rid of spam. All spam is gone. It gets rid of people coming in, masquerading as other people and things like this. So that's probably the safest, the only safe way of having email. Otherwise, there is no way to protect. People write emails that are so convincing that professors in the security section of the computer science department click on links they shouldn't. You can write such a compelling email, and for somebody who's older, it's really, really easy. So if you're worried about the email kind of thing, that's one strategy you can use, and that's about the only one. Everything else, all the advice goes out the window as soon as they see one compelling email that comes in, and it says, click here to save a child or something, and of course they're going to click on it.
So Greg, I just saw in the chat someone had asked, what program is that, or is that any email client can handle that?
Well, we have one that we're working on that does that, but I don't know of any other ones right now. But I can try to look for it and bring it up. Here's one right here that is an interesting one that actually looks like mail when you get it, and you click on it and it opens up, and it provides something very, very simple. And again, you don't have lots and lots of buttons, you just have a few. If you click reply, it doesn't ask you to type in the same email, it gives you a new one. And also one of the nice things about it is that when you click send, they don't call you up and say, what happened? I went to send it and I erased it. Because when you click send, what happens? It just disappears. So in this case, it doesn't. It goes back into an envelope, and it goes to a little truck, and he takes it away, and so you know that you got it. And this one also makes it easier to view photos and things like this. And so one of the things we did on this one is to make it so that it would only get email from a place that it got from. So that's something else that we're sort of working on to try to make things easier for people.
That's great. And I think there are probably options that one could do, like in Gmail, to basically put in filters, looking at the contact list and kind of filing everything from someplace else into another place, which sort of leads me to the thing that I have to say, which is we've got about 5 minutes left and about 50 questions left to answer. So what we're going to do, if you have a question, go ahead and put that in the Q&A section. We are going to collect all of those, aggregate them together, and then the panelists and I will put together basically a blog post that goes through and answers all of those questions that we weren't able to address here. So if there's something that you missed that we haven't shared, or if you have a question that we didn't get to, just go ahead and put it in there, and we'll put something together in the next week or so that answers all of your questions about whatever you have, since we don't have time to get to them all today.
And if you can't type the question quickly by the time we get to the end of the session today, you can also send them to us.
Yes, if you Google any of our names, which are on the invitation that you had, all of our university emails are online and available, so you'll be able to find us. We're happy to answer. Let's take one more voice question from Jean Rosenberg. Jean, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
I didn't have a question. I must have hit something.
Okay, that's fine. Let's take one more from the Q&A then. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I've just got a few that popped up here. Galina, I'm going to throw this one to you. Could you tell how an integrated technology would be like for dementia patients rather than having them use multiple technologies for everyday life?
Sure. Actually, I was just trying to type the answer to that. That's a really great question. And honestly, I haven't really found one technology that I feel like if you have been a caregiver and you understand the needs of somebody who has cognitive impairment, you know that their needs really vary from physical to emotional to psychosocial. And so one technology really can't be the answer, which is why I sort of recommend, I think, starting with something, whether it's a mobile phone and then including some apps that could engage the person. But it really depends on what their needs are. If they are walking outside of the door and are wandering, then that's a technology that's something very different than a phone. What I would say, we all want to age in place. We want to stay in our homes. The reason why I really like voice is because, as I mentioned in some of my slides, you could really add a lot of peripherals. So it's sort of one device that controls a lot of different ones. And I know it's not the best solution, but it's kind of what we have right now.
Great. Okay, another voice question. Arelis Perez, do you have a question? Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask.
No, I don't have a question. I have a request. Before we leave, I want to hear or see the Galina 20-second video.
Yes, thank you. I was going to set Galina up for that. So Galina, why don't you work on queuing that up, and I'll ask one more question for Millie, and then we'll go out with your video. Thank you very much for that request.
I have a 30-second one also, but go ahead.
Okay, we'll do Galina's and then yours, and then we'll say goodbye to everyone. But first I have a question for Millie. My husband, who's 68 years, is a retired engineer and active consultant. There isn't anything he can't do on his computer related to his work, but when it comes to everyday information seeking, like health and government, he is lost. It isn't a case of knowing how to use the technology, but instead the usability of such sites. What do you suggest?
Okay, so let me understand the question. So he is having a problem using the search engine to find what he needs.
It sounds like it. It sounds like when he gets on like a health site or a government site that they're just so unfriendly to users, which they certainly are, that he kind of gets stuck on them.
Oh, I see. Okay, so he's already on a site. Yeah, and it could be a little confusing. I would just take one link at a time. Find out what it is that you are looking for and stick to that link. Don't go off and look at any other link until you find out what it is, the answer to your question. Just keep going from that link to another, and don't be swayed by another link that gives you more information. That's how he's getting confused. So just stick to whatever you're trying to find. And if that link does not have it, you can always go to the search field, try to find more information, and there's always a telephone number or an email to call to get someone to assist him.
Thank you. That's such good advice and stuff I find myself telling people all the time. Like, don't look at anything else, just do the one thing. Okay, so we've got a minute left. Galina, do you want to show us your 20-second video?
I've added mushrooms to your shopping list. Anything else?
Zucchini.
I've added zucchini to your shopping list. Anything else?
Pinto beans.
I've added pinto beans to your shopping list. Anything else?
Splenda brown sugar.
I've added Splenda brown sugar to your shopping list. Anything else?
Canned pumpkin.
It was, her reaction was really just worth it for me.
That's lovely. Greg, you got a 30-second video. We're out of time, but I'm gonna let you show it.
There we go. Screen share. There you go.
Great.
I have such a sweet family, so loving and generous and fun. And not one of them can use a computer to save their lives. No, don't hit that one. Honey, she's gone.
I'm very online. I do the Google, the email, the Facebook. While I'm out there influencing most Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Now, I wasn't always such a power user, but my daughter set up all my apps on something called Morphic.
I mean, I love helping my mom, but it's a lot. But it's fine, but it's a lot.
And now I just click and get to chatting, liking, sharing, gramming, whatever it takes to make waves.
Our family video chats were a disaster. And then I used Morphic to set everything up for everybody so they'd stop acting like little babies about it.
Nana! Try to do it. Just try it. Morphic gave me my weekends back.
Thank you, Greg. That was lovely. And I think
I love the part where Nana was the one doing the technical support for everybody else instead of always thinking of it the other way around.
So thank you all so much for joining us. We hope this was a really kind of helpful hands-on session for all of you. As I said, we'll be taking all the questions that we weren't able to get to and putting together some kind of blog post to answer them for you. You can always reach out to any of us if you have other questions. And for now, that's it. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you to all of our panelists, and we hope you have a good rest of the week.
Thank you, everyone.